The great war chamber of Nexera Prime fell silent when Ambassador Sayla Thorne spoke her suggestion. Every alien leader in the room turned to stare at her with expressions ranging from confusion to open mockery. "You want us to request military aid from the humans?" High Commander Vorthenkel asked, his scaled face twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. The soft-skinned creatures from that death world in the outer systems? Sayla stood her ground. Her silver eyes met the High Commander's gaze without flinching. The Kreth Dominion has broken through 4 defensive lines in the past month. The Valoran fell at Sector 7. The Draxian fleet was destroyed at the Nebula Gate. We are running out of options, and your solution is to bring in a species that has no natural weapons? General Korath laughed from his seat. Humans have no claws, no armor, no venom. They cannot even see in the dark properly. They survived on a death world, Sayla said. That should tell us something. It tells us they got lucky. Vorthen replied. Their planet is covered in predators, diseases, and natural disasters. The fact that they developed space travel is a miracle of random chance. War scholar Drexus raised one of his forearms. The elderly alien had spent his entire life studying warfare across the galaxy. If I may speak, High Commander, I have reviewed the limited data we have on human military history. It is rather interesting. Interesting how? Vorthen asked. They have been fighting wars among themselves since they first learned to pick up rocks, Drexus said. Their entire evolutionary history is one of conflict. They developed tools specifically designed to kill each other long before they developed tools for anything else, Korath snorted. So they are violent savages. That does not make them useful soldiers. Perhaps not, Drexus agreed. But I would like to observe them in combat. For academic purposes. Vorthen waved his clawed hand dismissively. Fine. We will allow a small human unit to join the defensive position at Outpost 17. It is a minor location. When they fail, it will prove that this suggestion was foolish. When they succeed, which they will not, I will reconsider. Sayla bowed her head. Thank you, High Commander. I will make the request immediately. 3 standard weeks later, a human transport ship landed at Outpost 17. Commander Jack Morrison stepped off the ramp and looked around at the alien world with calm blue eyes. Behind him came 11 more humans, each carrying weapons and equipment that looked crude compared to the energy rifles used by other species. Lieutenant Amy Lawson walked up beside her commander. Not exactly a warm welcome, she said quietly. A group of Valoran soldiers stood nearby, their insect-like faces showing clear disgust. Their leader, a tall creature with 4 arms and compound eyes, approached the humans. I am Captain Vexus, the Valoran said. I am in charge of this outpost. You humans will stay out of the way and try not to die too quickly when the fighting starts. Morrison smiled. It was a calm, easy smile that did not match the situation at all. Understood, Captain. Where would you like us to position ourselves? Vexus pointed toward a gap in the defensive wall. That breach has been impossible to repair. The Kreth will likely attack through it first. You can stand there. The other humans exchanged glances. They all understood what this meant. The captain was placing them at the most dangerous point, expecting them to die quickly. Good spot, Morrison said. We will set up there. Sergeant Danny Cole, a large man with scars on his face and arms, led the squad toward the breach. Well, this is going to be fun, he muttered. Corporal Natalie Reyes checked her medical supplies as she walked. At least we have a clear field of fire. Private Ethan Brooks, the youngest member of the squad at just 22 years old, gripped his rifle tightly. Do you think the aliens will help us if things get bad? No, Lieutenant Amy said honestly. They expect us to fail. We are going to prove them wrong. War scholar Drexus watched the humans from a distance. He had traveled to the outpost specifically to observe them in combat. He had a recording device attached to his chest, capturing everything for his research. Fascinating. He murmured to himself. They show no fear at all. Either they are too stupid to understand the danger, or there is something I am missing. The humans spent the next several hours preparing their position. They moved rubble to create cover. They set up their weapons in overlapping fields of fire. They shared food and water and talked quietly among themselves. Drexus noticed something strange about their behavior. They touched each other constantly. A hand on a shoulder. A pat on the back. They made eye contact and nodded at each other. They laughed at jokes that did not seem funny. "What are they doing?" Drexus asked a nearby Valoran soldier. "Being strange," the soldier replied. "Humans are pack creatures. They form bonds like pets." Before Drexus could respond, the alarm siren started screaming across the outpost. Kreeth ships had been spotted entering the atmosphere. The attack was beginning. Captain Vexus ordered all soldiers to their defensive positions. The alien troops moved with discipline and precision, their energy weapons humming to life. At the breach in the wall, Commander Morrison stood calmly watching the sky. "Here they come," he said. The first Kreeth drop pods slammed into the ground outside the outpost. The doors blew open and massive warriors poured out. The Kreeth were terrifying creatures, standing 8 feet tall with thick armored skin and claws that could tear through metal. They carried heavy weapons in each of their 4 hands and roared battle cries that shook the air. "Contact," Amy called out. "Lots of them." Morrison nodded. "Weapons free." The humans opened fire. Their primitive projectile weapons cracked and thundered, a sharp contrast to the quiet hiss of energy rifles used by the aliens. Each bullet hit its target with brutal precision. The Kreeth faltered. They had expected easy prey. Instead, they found 12 small creatures that did not run, did not panic, and did not miss. More drop pods landed. More Kreeth warriors charged toward the breach. There were hundreds of them now, far more than 12 humans could possibly stop. Captain Vexus watched from the command center. "Order the humans to fall back," he said. "They will be overrun." The communication officer tried to relay the order. Morrison's voice came back through the speaker, calm and clear. "Negative on that fallback order, Captain. We are holding this line." Vexus stared at the screen showing the breach. The Kreeth were swarming toward it like a tide of death. The humans stood in their path, weapons firing without pause. "They are going to die," Vexus said. War Scholar Drexus stepped closer to the screen. His recording device captured everything. "Perhaps," he said quietly. "But look at their faces. They know that. And they do not care." At the breach, Sergeant Danny Cole took a hit to his shoulder. Blood sprayed across the rubble behind him. He did not fall. He did not retreat. He shifted his weapon to his other hand and kept firing. "Is that all you got?" he shouted at the enemy. Beside him, Private Ethan Brooks was shaking. His hands trembled on his rifle. But he did not run. He stood with his squad and pulled the trigger, again and again. Commander Morrison looked at his people. 12 humans against an army. The odds were impossible. He smiled anyway. "Hold the line," he said. "No matter what." The battle at the breach lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of constant gunfire, explosions, and screaming. 6 hours that should have ended in minutes. War Scholar Drexus watched from a protected observation point. His recording device captured everything, but his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. The humans did not fight like any species he had ever studied. When the first wave of Kreeth warriors reached the breach, Commander Morrison had ordered something called suppressing fire. Half of his squad fired continuously at the enemy, not aiming to kill, but aiming to keep the Kreeth from advancing. The other half used that time to reload and adjust positions. "They are wasting ammunition," Drexus said to himself. "Why would they shoot without targeting?" A Valoran soldier nearby heard him. "I asked them the same thing. They said it keeps the enemy scared and pinned." "Psychological warfare," Drexus muttered. "They are using psychological warfare against the Kreeth." The Kreeth were known throughout the galaxy as fearless warriors. They felt no terror. They felt no hesitation. But after an hour of being unable to advance, of watching their warriors fall before they could even see their enemies clearly. Something changed in their behavior. They started hesitating before charging. Lieutenant Amy Lawson had disappeared during the first hour of fighting. Drexus assumed she had fled or been killed. Then explosions started going off behind the Kreth lines. Amy had crawled through the rubble, moving in ways that should have been impossible, and planted improvised bombs using materials she had found on the battlefield. She made explosives from debris, Drexus recorded. No other species would think to do this. No other species would know how. Sergeant Danny Cole had been shot 3 times. Once in the shoulder, once in the leg, and once across his ribs. Any other species would have fallen unconscious from blood loss and pain. Danny kept fighting. His face was twisted in what the humans called rage, a biological response that flooded their bodies with chemicals and made them ignore pain. He should be dead, the Valoran soldier said. Adrenaline, Drexus answered. Their bodies produce a hormone that makes them stronger and faster when threatened. It also blocks pain signals to their brain. That is insane. That is evolution on a death world. Private Ethan Brooks had run out of ammunition during the 3rd hour. Instead of retreating, he picked up a metal pipe from the rubble and used it as a weapon. When a Kreth warrior got close enough, Ethan swung the pipe with both hands and crushed the enemy's skull. The Kreth warrior was 3 times his size. How? Drexus asked nobody in particular. How is that possible? Corporal Natalie Reyes moved through the battle like a ghost. She was not fighting, she was healing. Every time a human fell, she was there, pulling them to cover and treating their wounds. She had saved Danny twice already, sealing his wounds with quick applications of medical gel and forcing him back into the fight. But it was what she did next that shocked everyone watching. A Valoran soldier had been shot during a Kreth push. He lay in the open ground between the breach and the enemy lines. No one went to help him. His own people considered him lost. Natalie sprinted into the open. Energy bolts flew around her. Kreth warriors turned to fire at the small running figure. She did not stop. She reached the fallen Valoran, grabbed him by his armor, and dragged him back to cover while bullets tore up the ground around her feet. She is insane, Captain Vexus said from the command center. She risked her life for one of our soldiers. War scholar Drexus recorded the moment carefully. Not insane, he said. Human. The battle continued. Hour after hour. The Kreth kept sending warriors, and the humans kept cutting them down. Bodies piled up at the breach, creating new cover that the humans used to their advantage. Commander Morrison never stopped moving. He was everywhere at once, giving orders, adjusting positions, and taking shots at priority targets. His face showed no fear, no panic, no doubt. Just calm focus. They are not going to break, Drexus realized. They cannot break. It is not in their nature. In the 5th hour, the Kreth brought up a heavy weapon platform. It was a massive vehicle with guns that could level buildings. The alien defenders prepared to retreat. Nothing could stop that kind of firepower. Amy Lawson looked at the vehicle and smiled. Danny, give me your grenades. What are you going to do? Something stupid. She took the grenades and ran toward the enemy lines. Not away from the weapon platform. Toward it. She used the piles of dead Kreth bodies as cover, moving from corpse to corpse until she was close enough to throw. The grenades went through the vehicle's open firing port. The explosion tore it apart from the inside. When Amy ran back to the human lines, she was bleeding from a dozen small wounds. She was laughing. Humans are insane, the Valoran soldier beside Drexus said. Completely insane. Yes, Drexus agreed. And that is why they are winning. As the 6th hour began, the Kreth finally retreated. They had lost over 300 warriors trying to take a single breach defended by 12 humans. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was terrifying. Coalition reinforcements arrived 20 minutes later. Thousands of fresh troops poured into the outpost, expecting to find bodies and defeat. They found the 12 humans still standing. Danny was leaning against a wall, his wounds wrapped in blood-soaked bandages. Amy was reloading her weapons with hands that would not stop shaking. Ethan sat on the ground, staring at nothing, the metal pipe still clutched in his grip. Natalie moved among them, checking their injuries and forcing them to drink water. Commander Morrison stood at the center of the breach. Around him lay the bodies of hundreds of Kreeth warriors. He looked tired. He looked hurt. But he was still standing. High Commander Vorthan Kell came to the outpost personally. He had not believed the reports. He had to see for himself. He stood before Morrison and looked at the carnage around them. "How?" he asked. "How did you do this?" Morrison shrugged. "We held the line." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer we have." Vorthan turned to War Scholar Drexus. "You have been studying them. Explain this." Drexus took a moment to gather his thoughts. Humans evolved on a world where everything tried to kill them. Predators. Diseases. Weather. Other humans. They became persistence predators, which means they do not stop chasing prey until it is dead. They developed pack tactics that rely on trust and coordination. They created tools specifically designed for killing, and they have a biological inability to accept defeat. Biological inability? Their minds reject the concept of losing. When faced with impossible odds, they do not think about retreat. They think about how to win anyway. Vorthan looked back at the 12 humans. They were broken, bleeding, and exhausted. They should have been dead many times over. "What are you?" he asked Morrison. The human commander met his gaze. There was something ancient in those eyes. Something forged by millions of years of survival against impossible odds. "We are human," Morrison said, "and we do not know how to quit." Word spread through the Galactic Coalition like fire through dry grass. The impossible battle at Outpost 17 became the most discussed event in 100 years of war. 12 humans had held a position against 300 Kreeth warriors and won. Military commanders demanded answers. Political leaders demanded explanations. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What were humans really capable of? War Scholar Drexus stood before the Coalition Assembly 1 month after the battle. His findings had been compiled into a comprehensive report. He had spent weeks interviewing the human soldiers, studying their biology, and reviewing their military history. "Honored members of the Assembly," he began. "What I am about to tell you will change how you view the galaxy." He activated a holographic display showing human anatomy. Humans appear weak compared to most species. They have no claws, no natural armor, no venom, and no enhanced senses. Their homeworld should have killed them millions of years ago. "Then how did they survive?" High Commander Vorthan asked. "They refused to die," Drexus said simply. "When faced with predators, they did not evolve stronger bodies. They evolved smarter minds. They created weapons from stones and sticks. They formed groups that hunted together. They developed something called persistence hunting, where they would chase prey for days without stopping until the animal collapsed from exhaustion." "Days?" Ambassador Sayla asked. "They can chase prey for days?" "Humans have the greatest endurance of any known species. They do not run fast, but they can run forever. On their homeworld, they would literally chase animals until the animals died from exhaustion." Murmurs spread through the assembly. "This was not how predators were supposed to work," Drexus continued. "Their biological advantages are numerous but subtle. Adrenaline allows them to ignore pain and enhance their strength during combat. Their healing abilities are remarkable. Wounds that would kill other species can be survived with basic medical care. And their brains." He paused. "Their brains are perhaps the most dangerous weapons in the galaxy." "Explain," Vorthan commanded. "Humans think differently than any other species. They see patterns where others see chaos. They create solutions from nothing. They improvise." Drexus pulled up footage from the battle, showing Amy constructing explosives from debris. This soldier built weapons during active combat, using materials she found on the battlefield. No training prepared her for this. She simply saw a problem and invented a solution. The footage switched to show Danny continuing to fight after being shot multiple times. This soldier was wounded severely. Any other species would have fallen, He did not. His body was failing, but his mind would not allow him to stop. The final footage showed Natalie running into open fire to save a fallen Valorant soldier. This soldier risked her life to save an alien she had never met. When I asked her why, she said it was simply the right thing to do. Humans form bonds with anyone who fights beside them. They call it brotherhood. Once you are part of their pack, they will die to protect you. The assembly was silent. Drexus turned off the display. There is one more thing you must understand, he said. Humans have been fighting wars since before they developed language. Their entire history is one of conflict. They have studied warfare more than any other species in existence. They have developed tactics, strategies, and weapons that we have never seen. He looked directly at High Commander Vorthan. If we use them correctly, we will win this war. Vorthan considered this for a long moment. What do you recommend? Give Commander Morrison a real command. Let him lead combined forces, and let his soldiers train ours. 1 week later, Morrison was promoted. His squad of 12 became the core of a new special operations unit. They were given 500 soldiers from various coalition species to command and train. The results were immediate. Lieutenant Amy began teaching guerrilla tactics to alien troops. She showed them how to set ambushes, how to booby-trap enemy positions, and how to disappear after attacking. The aliens found these tactics dishonorable at first. Honor does not win wars, Amy told them. Survival does. Sergeant Danny led endurance training that nearly killed his alien students. He pushed them to run further than they thought possible, to fight longer than their bodies wanted, and to never give up, no matter how much it hurt. Pain is just information, he said. You can choose to ignore it. Corporal Natalie established field medical protocols that saved hundreds of lives. She taught alien medics how to treat wounds quickly and efficiently, how to keep soldiers fighting even when injured, and how to never leave anyone behind. Private Ethan, now promoted to sergeant, trained close combat specialists. He showed them that size did not matter as much as speed, aggression, and willingness to do anything necessary to win. The Kreth Dominion began losing battles they should have won. General Morak, the Kreth warlord leading the invasion, received reports that confused and enraged him. His warriors were being ambushed by invisible enemies, supply lines were being destroyed, defensive positions were falling to forces that should have been too small to threaten them. What is happening? He demanded of his advisors. The humans, one of them said. They are teaching the coalition how to fight like them. Morak studied the reports. He had dismissed humans as weak creatures, barely worth noticing. Now they were turning the war against him. Find me humans, he ordered. Capture them. I want to understand what makes them so dangerous. 3 weeks later, a patrol led by Sergeant Danny Cole was ambushed. The Kreth used overwhelming force, attacking with 10 times the soldiers needed for a simple patrol. Danny and 7 other humans were captured. The rest were killed. When Morrison heard the news, his face went still. Where are they taking them? A prison facility on Kreth-held world Darkalis, intelligence reported. It is the most secure prison in their empire. Then that is where I am going. Amy stepped forward. Jack. It is a trap. They captured Danny specifically to draw us out. I know, Morrison said. And I am still going. High Commander Vorthan tried to stop the rescue mission. Commander, I cannot authorize an assault on Darkalis. The risks are too high. Morrison looked at him with eyes that had seen too much death. With respect, High Commander, I am not asking for authorization. Danny is my brother. My team is my family. Humans do not abandon family. Vorthan wanted to argue. He wanted to explain that military strategy did not account for emotional attachments, but he had seen what humans could do when they were properly motivated. What do you need? He asked instead. Morrison smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Everything you can give me. We are going to show the Kreth what happens when you take something from humans. On the prison world of Darkalis, Sergeant Danny Cole sat in a cell designed to hold the most dangerous prisoners in the Kreth Empire. His wounds had been treated, but only enough to keep him alive. General Morak wanted him healthy enough to answer questions. The general visited personally. He stood outside Danny's cell, and studied the small human like a scientist examining an insect. "You are so small," Morak said. "So fragile. How did your species become so dangerous?" Danny looked up at the massive Kreth warrior. Despite his injuries, despite his situation, he smiled. "You really want to know?" "Yes." Danny leaned forward. His voice was calm and steady. "Because we never stop. No matter what you do to us, no matter how many of us you kill, we never stop. And right now, my commander is coming for me. He will tear this galaxy apart to find me. And when he does, you are going to understand exactly why humanity is the most dangerous species you have ever faced." Morak laughed. "One human cannot threaten my empire." Danny's smile widened. He will not be alone. The prison facility on Darkalis was built to be unbreakable. 3,000 Kreth warriors guarded its walls. Energy shields protected every entrance. Surveillance systems covered every corner. No prisoner had ever escaped. General Morak was confident that his human prisoners would provide valuable intelligence. He had planned extensive interrogation sessions to learn their weaknesses and secrets. He never got the chance. On the 5th day of captivity, Sergeant Danny Cole started a riot. It began simply. The humans had been placed in adjacent cells, separated from each other, but close enough to communicate through the walls. Danny had spent the first 4 days observing the guards, learning their routines, and identifying weaknesses in the prison's security. "Tonight," he whispered to the human in the next cell. "Pass it on." The message traveled from cell to cell. 8 humans, 8 soldiers who had trained together, fought together, and trusted each other completely. When the night shift began, Danny started coughing. He made it sound terrible, like he was dying. The guard outside his cell ignored him at first. The coughing got worse. Danny fell to the floor, convulsing. The guard opened the cell to check on the prisoner. It was against protocol, but dead humans could not answer questions. Danny moved faster than should have been possible. He grabbed the guard's weapon and turned it against him before the massive Kreth could react. One shot. Silent. Clean. He took the guard's keycard and communication device. Within 2 minutes, he had freed the other 7 humans. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they notice the guard is missing," Danny said. "Here is the plan." There was no plan. They were 8 unarmed humans in the middle of the most secure prison in the Kreth Empire. But humans had never needed fair odds to win. They moved through the facility like ghosts. Every guard they encountered was killed silently. They took weapons, armor, and supplies as they went. By the time the alarm finally sounded, they had reached the communication center. "This is Danny Cole." He broadcast on all coalition frequencies. "We are inside the Darkalis prison. I am transmitting Kreth fleet positions and troop deployments. If anyone is listening, come get us." The response came immediately. Commander Morrison's voice filled the communication center. "Danny, hold your position. We are coming." "Good to hear your voice, Commander." "Good to hear yours. How many guards?" "About 3,000 when we started. Less now." Morrison laughed. "Try to leave some for us." The prison descended into chaos. Kreth warriors flooded the corridors, searching for the escaped humans. But fighting humans in close quarters was different from fighting them on an open battlefield. Amy had taught the alien troops about guerrilla tactics. Danny had learned them first. He set ambushes at every corner. He booby-trapped doors with stolen explosives. He turned the prison's own security systems against the guards. General Morak watched the disaster unfold from his command center. His perfect prison was being torn apart by 8 small creatures who refused to accept captivity. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. No one had an answer. The humans held the communication center for 3 hours. They lost 2 of their own in the fighting. 6 remained. 6 against thousands. And then the sky outside the prison exploded with light. Coalition warships dropped out of hyperspace directly above Darkalis. It was the largest attack force assembled since the war began. Commander Morrison had not asked for a small rescue team. He had asked for everything. Drop pods rained down on the prison. Human soldiers hit the ground first, followed by thousands of coalition troops trained in human tactics. Morrison led the assault personally. He cut through Kreeth defenders with a fury that terrified his own allies. He did not stop for cover. He did not slow down for obstacles. He moved toward his people with the unstoppable determination that had made humanity famous. Lieutenant Amy commanded the eastern assault, turning the Kreeth's defensive positions into death traps with carefully placed explosives. Corporal Natalie followed behind the main force, saving wounded soldiers from both sides, because that was what medics did. Sergeant Ethan led a squad that punched directly through the prison's main gate. General Morak understood too late what was happening. This was not just a rescue mission. It was a message. Do not touch what belongs to humans. Morrison found Danny in the communication center, still holding a weapon despite being wounded and exhausted. The sergeant looked up at his commander and smiled. Took you long enough. Traffic was bad. They evacuated the surviving humans, while coalition forces secured the prison. The operation lasted 4 more hours. When it was over, the most secure facility in the Kreeth Empire had fallen. General Morak was captured alive. Morrison wanted to speak with him personally. The Kreeth warlord sat in chains, surrounded by human soldiers. He had never imagined he would be a prisoner. He had never imagined he could lose. Morrison stood before him. You took my people. They were enemy combatants. They were my family. Morrison leaned closer. Let me explain something to you, General. Humans do not leave family behind. We do not abandon our own. You can kill us. You can hurt us. You can burn our worlds and destroy our ships. But if you take one of us, the rest will come. No matter how far, no matter how dangerous, we will come. Morak stared at the small human before him. You are insane. Probably, Morrison agreed, but we are winning. The Battle of Darkalis became a turning point in the war. The Kreeth Dominion had believed themselves invincible. They had conquered dozens of species through sheer force. But they had never faced anything like humanity. War scholar Drexus recorded everything. He added new entries to his ongoing study of human warfare. Human concept. Leave no one behind. This is not just a tactical doctrine. It is a religious belief. Humans view abandonment as a moral failure worse than death. This creates soldiers who fight harder because they know they will never be left behind, and commanders who take impossible risks because leaving people behind is unacceptable. He watched the rescued humans being loaded onto medical ships. They were broken, wounded, and traumatized. They were also smiling. Human concept, brotherhood. The bonds formed between soldiers in combat create a family stronger than blood. Humans will die for their brothers without hesitation. This makes every human unit more dangerous than their numbers suggest. Because attacking one human means attacking all of them. Drexus closed his recording and looked out at the burning prison below. He thought about what he had witnessed since the humans arrived. The impossible victory at Outpost 17. The transformation of coalition tactics. The assault on Darkalis. I have studied warfare my entire life, he said to himself. I have seen hundreds of species fight and die. I thought I understood combat. He shook his head. I understood nothing until I met humanity. On the command ship, Morrison sat alone in his quarters. The mission was over. His people were safe. But he could not sleep. He kept seeing the faces of the 2 soldiers they had lost in the prison, good people who died because of him. A knock at his door. Danny entered without waiting for permission. He sat down across from his commander. Stop blaming yourself. 2 dead, 8 captured, 6 rescued, prison destroyed, enemy general captured, war shortened by months. Danny leaned forward. You did good, Jack. They knew the risks. We all do. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. When does it get easier? It does not. Danny stood up and put a hand on Morrison's shoulder. But we keep going anyway. Because that is what humans do. Outside the ship, the stars burned cold and distant. The war continued. But somewhere, in the Kreeth High Command, leaders were finally asking the question they should have asked from the beginning. How do we stop something that does not know how to quit? The war ended not with extinction, but with surrender. 6 months after the assault on Darkalis, the Kreth High Council sent a message to the Galactic Coalition. They requested peace negotiations. They asked for one condition. Humans must be present at the talks. High Commander Vorthan received the message with suspicion. It could be a trap. Commander Morrison shook his head. It is not. They are tired. They have lost too much. They want it to end. How can you be certain? Morrison looked out the window at the stars. Because I have fought wars my entire career. I know what defeat looks like. And right now, the Kreth are defeated. The peace negotiations took place on neutral ground, a space station in unclaimed territory. Representatives from every coalition species attended. The Kreth sent their highest-ranking surviving leaders. General Morak was not among them. He had died in coalition custody 3 months earlier. Not from torture or execution, but from refusing to eat. He could not accept being defeated by creatures he had considered inferior. Morrison represented humanity at the negotiations. He sat across from Kreth leaders who had ordered the deaths of thousands. He did not show anger or hatred. He showed patience. You have won, the Kreth High Speaker said. What do you demand? Morrison considered the question. The coalition wanted territory. They wanted resources. They wanted the Kreth weakened beyond recovery. Morrison wanted something different. We demand that this never happens again, he said. We demand lasting peace. Real peace. Not a pause before the next war. The Kreth leaders were confused. You do not want revenge? Revenge creates more enemies. More enemies create more wars. More wars create more dead. Morrison leaned forward. I have buried too many soldiers. I do not want to bury more. War scholar Drexus observed the negotiations with fascination. He had expected humanity to push for harsh terms. They had earned the right. Instead, they pushed for something far more dangerous to the Kreth way of life: cooperation. The peace treaty established trade routes between Kreth space and coalition territory. It created cultural exchange programs. It required the Kreth to reduce their military and invest in civilian development. It was not punishment. It was transformation. You are trying to change them, Drexus said to Morrison after the signing ceremony. You are trying to make them like you. Morrison smiled. Not like us. Just less likely to start wars. Peace is more profitable than conquest. Once they figure that out, everyone benefits. That is remarkably wise for a warrior species. The best warriors know when fighting is the wrong answer. The peace held. It took years, but slowly the Kreth began to change. Trade replaced raiding. Diplomacy replaced intimidation. A species that had been conquerors for 10,000 years started to become something else. Ambassador Sayla Thorne presented humanity's formal acceptance into the Galactic Coalition 1 year after the peace treaty. The ceremony was held in the same assembly hall where she had first suggested asking humans for help. High Commander Vorthan stood before the assembled representatives. His views on humanity had changed completely since that first meeting. When Ambassador Sayla first proposed requesting human military assistance, I laughed, he admitted. I thought humans were weak, primitive creatures who had survived their death world through luck alone. I was wrong. He turned to face the human delegation. Morrison stood at their center, flanked by his officers. Danny, Amy, Natalie, Ethan, and the others who had fought beside him from the beginning. Humans are not the strongest species. They are not the fastest, or the largest, or the most naturally gifted, but they are the most unstoppable. They do not know how to quit. They do not leave each other behind. They adapt to any challenge and overcome any obstacle through sheer determination. Vorthan extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. On behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I welcome humanity as full members. May your strength be our strength. May your courage inspire us all. Morrison shook his hand. We are honored to stand beside you. The ceremony continued with speeches and celebrations, but Drexus noticed something that most others missed. Throughout the event, The human soldiers stayed close to each other. They touched shoulders, exchanged glances, and communicated without words. Even in peacetime, they were still a pack. Later that evening, Drexus published his final report on human warfare. It had taken him nearly 2 years to complete. It covered everything from human biology to psychology to military tactics. The conclusion was what most readers remembered. Humanity is the galaxy's most unstoppable warrior species, not because they are the strongest, fastest, or most numerous. They are unstoppable because they refuse to accept defeat. They protect their own at any cost. They adapt to any situation and improvise solutions from nothing. And when the battle is over, they extend their hand to former enemies rather than destroying them completely. This combination makes them impossible to truly defeat. You cannot break their will because they do not know how to give up. You cannot isolate them because they form bonds with anyone who fights beside them. You cannot destroy them because they learn from every loss and come back stronger. But perhaps most remarkable of all is what they do with victory. Instead of domination, they choose cooperation. Instead of revenge, they choose reconciliation. They understand that true strength is not just winning wars, but building peace that lasts. In the end, what makes humanity dangerous is not their capacity for violence, it is their capacity for everything else. The report became required reading at every military academy in the coalition. Young officers studied human tactics. Scientists examined human biology. Philosophers debated human ethics, but the humans themselves did not change. They remained what they had always been: stubborn, adaptable, emotional creatures who refused to accept the impossible. On the anniversary of the peace treaty, Commander Morrison gathered his original squad for a private celebration. They sat in a small bar on a coalition station, sharing drinks and memories. "Do you remember Outpost 17?" Danny asked. "When they put us at that breach expecting us to die? I remember you getting shot 3 times and refusing to stop fighting," Amy said. "I remember Ethan killing a Kreth warrior with a pipe," Natalie added. Ethan laughed. "I remember being terrified the entire time. I thought I was going to die every second." Morrison listened to his people talk. These were his family, not by blood, but by something stronger. They had faced death together and survived. They had held lines that should have been impossible to hold. They had changed the course of a galactic war. "I have a question," Drexus said. The war scholar had been invited to join them. An honor he understood was rare. "After everything you went through, all the battles and losses, do you have any regrets?" Morrison thought about the question carefully. He thought about the soldiers he had lost, the friends who would never come home, the scars that would never fully heal. "No," he said finally. "Because every fight was for something worth fighting for. My people, my family, a chance at peace." He raised his glass. "That is what humans do. We fight for what matters, and we never stop until the job is done." The others raised their glasses in response. Outside the station windows, the stars continued their eternal dance. The galaxy was at peace. The war was over. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Drexus recorded one final observation in his personal notes. It was not scientific or analytical. It was simply what he felt. "I have lived for 300 years. I have met countless species. I have witnessed the rise and fall of empires. But I have never met anything like humans. They are violent and compassionate, stubborn and flexible, terrifying and inspiring. They should not exist, and yet they do, and they always will." He looked at the laughing humans around him and added one last line. Perhaps most frightening of all, they actually enjoy this. Commander Morrison caught him writing and grinned. "What are you adding to your famous report?" Drexus smiled back. "The truth. Humans are the most unstoppable warrior species in the galaxy. Not because of your strength or your weapons. Because of your heart." Morrison nodded. "That sounds about right." The celebration continued late into the night. And somewhere across the galaxy, a young Kreth student read Drexus's report for the first time and wondered what it would be like to meet a human. The universe would never be the same.